The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy got it done.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
5 years, $265 million, $53 million per year for Mr. Irrelevant. 3 years ago, 3 short years ago, Brock Purdy was the last pick in the NFL draft, and now he's got a $265 million contract, 5-year extension after this year. So that means 6 total years still that Brock Purdy will be under contract with the San Francisco 49ers if everything goes well. And 2030, he's your San Francisco 49ers quarterback potentially until 2030. And who knows, maybe there's another extension that's done before that contract even runs out, Croc. What do you think? $53 million per year, 5 years, $265 million. What were your initial impressions?
Now, I want to say, first, man, just great job by Brock Purdy, being the last pick in the NFL draft. Damn near undrafted, right? And defying all odds. A couple guys had to get injured for him to play. Trey Lance, number 3 overall pick. Jimmy Garoppolo, a guy who went to multiple conference championship games and a Super Bowl for the 49ers, right? So he had to get those guys kind of out the way. And then he played at a level that made this not only a conversation, but kind of the expectation of him taking over this franchise and them shoving out Trey Lance, just shoving him out, kicking him out the door, So from the day he stepped on the field, he has been awesome for the 49ers and he's played very well. And, I think now you see the contract. I know my initial thing was to look at the numbers. Okay, 5 years, $265 million. Okay, I'm bad at math, so let me pull out my handy dandy calculator on my iPhone, and I did the math. Okay, $53 million per year. Nice, right? Nice. 53. That was roughly what we expected. Right now, there were some numbers that were thrown out. 60 million. Then you see some of the guys that are getting about 55 million or so. And then you and I talked about it once Josh Allen kind of signed this extension and they kind of average out to 55. It's like, well, you can't give Brock 55. And I know you and I felt more comfortable with like 45. And that's in like a perfect world. But in a realistic world, you knew it would land between $50 to $55 million per year. And then you look at the previous year contract. And this was one of the things I said on social media. Once you look at the Trevor Lawrence, the Tuas, the Jordan Loves, and see that they're making very similar money, and maybe even a little bit more than Brock Purdy. And at the time that Brock Purdy signed his, you're supposed to go up, right? It's supposed to be more the next year. That's what the market is, right? If these guys made X amount of dollars and they've done this with their team, then we expect our quarterback to get more than those guys. And that did not happen. It's less guaranteed money per year than the other guys. It's less money per year than the other guys. And this is at a time where you're dealing with inflation, because inflation, everything is going up. The salary cap is even going up. And the 49ers somehow were able to pay Brock Purdy a lower percentage than of their salary cap than all the other guys. So excellent job by the 49ers getting it done in a timely matter. And I'm pretty sure more details of the structure of the contract will come out, but they did an excellent job by all means with the structure of it as well.
Yeah, and look, this is the word from the agent, right? And so the first numbers you see comes from the agent side. And so whatever structure we hear from here is only going to look better probably from the 49ers side as we find out more about this contract, how much is actually fully 100% guaranteed, how much is not, when is stuff due. And but yeah, the initial impression, the first thing, like you said, Croc, good on Brock Purdy. It's awesome to see where he came from. And, we get ahead of ourselves sometimes. Like, oh, Brock Purdy's not perfect. Oh, he's not worth $53 million per year or whatever. And we're going to hear some of those things from from folks that are fans of the 49ers and not fans of the 49ers and in the media. But the fact that, and look, this was going to be market value. And like you mentioned, with inflation, this is the number that it was going to have to come down to, between 50 and 55. And I think we all expected it, and it was right in there. But for Brock Purdy to be the guy who, the first time he threw a pass, he did more than any Mr. Irrelevant in history, right? Just stepping on the field and playing as Mr. Irrelevant, completing a pass is unheard of. For him to be in line to get a $265 million 5-year extension is phenomenal and pretty amazing. And we look back on the Brock Purdy story, it's only success no matter what happens from here because of what he's been able to do so far. And so good on the young man. And he's an easy guy to root for the San Francisco 49ers. You put your fandom aside, he's done just about everything right. And it's really cool to see him get that payday. And he absolutely earned it. And he was playing for well below market rate as a starter for the last couple of years. So when you factor that in, and when we see the structure, I have a feeling this is going to be a contract that looks fine for the 49ers. And he still has to perform. And especially with when it comes down to the long-term stuff and the end of his guarantees, he's going to have to perform in the next few years. And there's going to be less money for everybody else. That's just the reality. There's $50 million per year that could have gone to other players that will now not. And so can he elevate? Because that's what you pay a guy this much money to do, is elevate the rest of the team. So this story is not done being written, but good on Brock Purdy. He absolutely earned every bit of this extension.
Use the word elevate, and those were some of the comments I was getting tagged in about maybe not being able to elevate this from the situation that we saw the 49ers in last season. And because of that, people are trying to kind of knock him down and say that he shouldn't get paid. I believe this because we see this, right? He deserves it all. In the header, you put, is he worth that much? I think you deserve or you're worth whatever someone is willing to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
49ers were willing to pay him, $180 million guaranteed. So that is what Brock Purdy is worth. Now, there's going to be some people like others. Again, I won't say he's not worth something, but I know what I would have paid and what I wouldn't have paid. And the question that I had, right, or the what I brought up was, I think we used Sam Darnold early, like I think maybe even during the season. And it's like, hey, Sam Darnold's going to get $33 million a year or whatever. And is that what he ended up getting, like 33 a year?
I believe something like that. Yeah, close enough.
So the question that for me would have been, is Brock $30 million more per year better than Sam Darnold? Now the question is he $20 million per year better than Sam Darnold? And that right there, that's not saying that I don't think Purdy's good. I think Sam Darnold looked pretty damn good last year, right? And now people say, well, Sam Darnold was in a great situation. He's throwing to Jordan Addison and he's throwing to Justin Jefferson, and they had a run game with Aaron Jones, and the O-line was decent and the defense played well, right? And it's like, well, yeah. And when you have those things, you win a lot of games, and they won 14 games. So we found out that when Sam Darnold has a good supporting cast, he can put up 14 wins, right? Or he could be on a team that puts up 14 wins. And we've also seen the other side of it with Sam Darnold, where when he doesn't have that, it doesn't look as good. And I think we've seen both sides of the fence for Brock. And I mean, drastic sides, right? Where when he has everybody, man, it looks great. And we've seen them go to the Super Bowl and conference championship game. And maybe could have went to the Super Bowl in the conference championship game that they lost if he didn't get hurt. But we've also seen the other side of it where, man, some guys got banged up. There were some weird situations. Damn, you won 6 games? Like, that's a drastic drop-off. So I would have struggled to pay, if I would have seen what Sam Darnold got paid, I would have struggled to pay someone $20 million more per year to get, I don't want to say similar results, because the 49ers team went further and they had more postseason success than what we saw from the Vikings. But that just would have been a little bit more of a struggle for me. And that it could have been Brock Purdy, it could have been Jared Goff, it could have been whoever, right? Baker Mayfield, whoever you want to throw out there, whatever name. Like, this guy is getting paid right now. That's the guy we're talking about, Brock Purdy. So I'm using him as an example. But for any quarterback, if my team is loaded and you're good, and then I have some injuries, and then you're bad, and I'm comparing you to this guy who just got paid $33 million, I'd have a tough time paying you $20 million more per year than that guy. And that's just me, though.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
The Baltimore Ravens roster continues to take its final shape.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast.
John Jenkins signed with the Ravens over the weekend. Now, Jenkins is 35 years old, and obviously for Baltimore, there was a massive, both figuratively and literally, a massive hole to fill on that Baltimore defensive line with the retirement of Michael Pierce. And I think Michael Pierce was the biggest loss of Baltimore's offseason. You can talk about Brandon Stevens, which honestly, I don't think a lot of people are talking about him in that light. But, Patrick McCarry, who did the Ravens really lose? I think it really was Michael Pierce. So the Ravens have to replace that in the middle. You didn't need to sign or even trade for or add a crazy good player in terms of the next Aaron Donald, go get a star at the defensive line spot. You have enough there right now, where all you really needed to add was that guy, that depth piece for them. And while I think this is a downgrade of sorts from Michael Pierce, Jenkins is someone who, in my opinion, is honestly underrated at the position, despite the fact that he is 35 years old. He was a 17-game player for the Raiders last season. He spent the last 2 years there, 600 snaps per season, 2 sacks, 107 tackles, and 6 passes deflected. He's played the last 2 full seasons. So obviously when you talk about football, sports, injuries, and whatnot, availability is one of the best traits you can have. And John Jenkins has been available. He displays a lot of good power on the interior, can eat up some double teams for you as well. And that's the type of thing that you want. Michael Pierce was really hard to defend because he would just eat up space, eat up blockers. And that obviously freed up guys like Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen when he was in Baltimore, and some of these second and third level players to go and make tackles. Now, he's not going to provide a lot from the pass rushing department. He had a sack in each of the last 2 seasons with Las Vegas, but I think Pierce provided more of you could put him in passing situations if you felt like it. I think that for John Jenkins, the thing that Pierce had over him is Pierce was more of a pass rusher. Not that, Michael Pierce was lighting the world up with 10 sacks every single season from the interior, but I think that Jenkins is not going to provide Baltimore that this season, and it's going to be much more of a rotation in terms of you want Jenkins in there for the obvious run situations, early down player, and then you can rotate in the others. That obviously comes down to Nnamdi Madubuike and Travis Jones, Broderick Washington, etc. You want those guys, Aeneas Peebles, those are the guys you're going to want in on those passing situations because, quite frankly, Jenkins just is not going to give you that. So you look at Baltimore's defensive line room now, and I just mentioned the guys in it. It's going to be Madubuike, Jones, Washington, Peebles, and now Jenkins. I like that room. I would have liked it a lot better if Pierce was still there instead of Jenkins, but I still think Jenkins provides Baltimore what they needed. They needed a big body. It was very apparent that once Pierce left, they were going to need somebody to fill that void. Jenkins does that. And I'm feeling good about that D-line room. And if you've been listening to me on this show, the D-line room has been my favorite positional group on this roster for the past couple of seasons. And honestly, I don't think that changes this year. I think now Madubuike, we know he's faced a lot of double teams, especially last season after his breakout year 2 years ago. And while the production went down for him, teams were focusing on him. And I think this is going to be the same case again this season. Travis Jones is one of my favorite players on this roster. I think he's in line for another step up this year. And I think that the Ravens certainly need him to be that, even with Pierce gone. Like, they need Jones here. Broderick Washington, who, quite frankly, hasn't necessarily lived up to that extension that he signed a couple of years ago. And it's been kind of disappointing. I think Washington, they're going to need him as well. Can he make a step or a leap? And then I think, Aeneas Peoples was one of my favorite day 3 players of the entire draft. He was someone that I was pounding the table for Baltimore to take in the 4th round because I thought he was that good. But again, I think that Baltimore's roster right now, and this is evident in the D-line room and obviously a bunch of other positions as well, but since we're talking D-line, we're going to focus on it. A guy like Aeneas Peoples is a little undersized. In fact, it's not a little. He is undersized for the position, and he's not going to give you much in way of run defense, being stout against the run, being able to eat up double teams like that. So it's more of a situational, like John Jenkins and Aeneas Peoples, who are supposed to be more of your depth pieces this year, are going to contribute in spots that their strengths are in. It lines up really nicely for those guys. Where obviously Madubuike, Jones, those are your guys you can trust on all 3 downs. And I know that there's been some conversation in years about Madubuike's run defense. I don't necessarily buy into that as much as other people do. I think that he's improved in that area. Jones, to me, is a 3-down player. He's a force against the run and as a pass rusher. And I hope that leap starts up here for him or continues for him. But Peebles is someone you probably don't want on the field in a 3rd and short situation. John Jenkins is. And I think that the other thing that Baltimore can kind of unlock here is you can move a guy like Tavius Robinson inside. Maybe if they do want to kick the tires on a Jadeveon Clowney, which we've talked about on this show, maybe they do that, and you can move a guy like him inside as well. They have bigger edge guys that you can move inside on those 3rd and shorts, 2nd and shorts to stifle an opposing offense from getting a 1st down. Jenkins just is their big body guy. So again, I'm not going to sit here and declare the Ravens are Super Bowl champions because they signed John Jenkins. That'd be a pretty foolish thing of me to do here, for being honest, right? But in my opinion, it was a move that Baltimore needed to make. And for the guys that were available, by the way, there really wasn't a lot out there, unless you were a fan of like a Linval Joseph or a couple of those other. Again, these were guys, we're not on day 2 of free agency here. The options were limited, and I think Baltimore made pretty much the best out of a situation where they just needed a guy. And honestly, if it was another guy, the drop off or better than John Jenkins, it wouldn't have been that much. So this isn't a move that I'm like looking too much into in terms of like, oh, well, this move doesn't work out for Baltimore, man, their defense is cooked. Like they're not going to be. No, of course not. Of course not. But I still think that this is a move that Baltimore needed to make. It was one of the final moves that I think that Baltimore had on their checklist. There are a couple of others now, especially with the Ardarius Washington injury, adding a veteran safety, I think's that last move. But this was one of the last ones, and it's really exciting to kind of see Baltimore's roster take this shape, take this form, and I think it's a really, really, really good one. So, John Jenkins, your newest Baltimore Ravens defensive lineman.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes it easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, there's so many ways to bet your favorite props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
The Washington Commanders are projected to win as many as 12 games or more in 2025.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The path to the Super Bowl for the Washington Commanders has 3 steps in it, and that's how we're going to break this thing down. First off, obviously, you have to make the playoffs. The second thing you'd like to do is win the NFC East division. Division winners tend to have a little bit of a better path to the playoffs, although NFL owners are reportedly going to consider shifting those things just a little bit. And then third, you have to overcome obstacles, right? You've got to be able to overcome a lot of obstacles. We saw the Washington Commanders do the first step. Make the playoffs last year, increasing their win total from 4 in 2023 to 12 in 2024. They get to the postseason, and we've always said here on the program, you just got to get to the tournament. That's ultimately goal number one for the regular season. Get to the tournament. Once you get into the tournament, anything that can happen. The Commanders get a game-winning field goal on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, go into Detroit, 5 takeaways against that Detroit Lions offense, and win the divisional round playoff matchup against the number 1 seed in the NFC. Then they go into Philadelphia, and that's where their own mistakes cost them. They turned the ball over a handful of times. A lot of things happening there. The Eagles, don't want to take too much credit away from them. Certainly a good team, certainly deserve that victory, but the Washington Commanders not helping out their own causes in the NFC Championship game. Of course, the Eagles go on to win the Super Bowl. So how do they get back to the playoffs, the Washington Commanders? Well, the Commanders currently over-under is set at 9.5 wins on FanDuel. I remember coming into last season, the over-under was 7.5 wins. I told you, take the over. All the confidence in the world, take the over on the 7.5 wins. 9.5 wins, I'm still going to tell you to take the over. I'm just not going to be as confident. I'm still pretty confident. I think this team can get to at least 10 wins here. And how are we going to break this down? So the way we did this last year, I thought it really resonated well. We broke the schedule down into 3 categories. Talking about playoff teams, and then, of course, would be playoff teams that made the playoffs in 2024. Talking about non-playoff teams that had winning records. And then we're talking about teams that had losing records and kind of the win share you needed against each of those to reach that goal of 10 games, or 10 wins. So in 2025, the Washington Commanders are facing 8 playoff teams. Now that includes the Eagles twice, the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos. All of those teams made the NFL playoffs in 2024. They're facing one team in 2025 that had a winning record last year, but did not make the postseason, that being the Seattle Seahawks. And they've got 8 games against teams that had losing records last year. The Cowboys twice, the Giants twice, the Bears, Falcons, Dolphins, and the Raiders. And if you look at how the Commanders did against these 3 groups in 2024 and extrapolate that data to 2025, then you might get a little bit more confidence in hitting that over if you are a wagering person like I am. So 2024 win percentages against playoff teams. The Commanders went 1-4 against teams that ended up in the postseason, a 200 winning record. They had a 1-0 record against teams that finished with a winning record but did not make the postseason, so 100% win record there. And they had a 10-1 record against teams that had losing records last season, so a .909 winning record. Ended up, the Washington Commanders did with the second easiest schedule in the National Football League last year when you look at the end of season win-loss stats. Of course, strength of schedule right now for 2025, you're using last year's win-loss records at the end of the season. You'll look back at how the year went, reshuffle them. The Commanders ended up with the second easiest schedule. Of course, they also helped some of those teams lose those games that ended up making the schedule look easier, right? So if those win percentages hold up again this year against an admittedly tougher schedule, then they're going to go projected they're going to have a 2-6 record in those 8 games against playoff teams. They're going to have a 1-0 record against the team that had the winning record that didn't make the postseason, which would be the Seattle Seahawks. And you're going to have a 7-1 record against teams that had losing records last year, finishing with a total record of 10-7. So if the Commanders basically do as well against these 3 classes of teams on their schedule as they did last year, they're going to hit that 10-win mark, gives you that 9.5 line. So it gives you a little bit more confidence going over. Of course, if you're going to go over the 9.5, you would love to have 11, 12 wins right on the docket. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. So where could the Washington Commanders, you look at their schedule, where could they lose some ground? Where could they gain some ground? We're going to start with gaining some ground. I think the first game, you talk about these playoff games, right? So these teams against these games against playoff teams. I've got 3 games against playoff teams where you could see the Washington Commanders get a win because of some contextual circumstances going on with these teams. Starting off with the Detroit Lions, they've got 2 brand new coordinators. The last time we saw an NFC caliber playoff team enter the season with 2 brand new coordinators was the Philadelphia Eagles just a couple years ago. And that first year having 2 brand new coordinators did not go well. They ended up firing both coordinators and they ended up bringing in new coordinators, Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio. Of course, that went a lot better, unfortunately for us, unfortunately for the Philadelphia Eagles. So for the Detroit Lions, they bring in they lose offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. He's now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. They lose defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, who's now the head coach of the New York Jets. They bring in offensive coordinator John Morton, who was last the Denver Broncos pass game coordinator for 2023 and 2024 seasons. From a production standpoint, a fairly mid-level offense the past 2 seasons in passing and scoring and in rushing. Now, again, the personnel matters, the fit matters, all that kind of stuff, right? You've got a more aggressive head coach in Campbell. So it's not going to be an apples-to-apples comparison, but fairly mid-offense. Defensive coordinator for the Lions now is Kelvin Shepard, a homegrown, in-house grown, developed coach. Lions linebacker coach from 2022 to 2024. Previous to that, he was the outside linebackers coach in 2021. I think the thing that stands out about Kelvin Shepard especially is he's never been a coordinator. At least John Morton has been a Broncos pass game coordinator, so he's had a hand in the coordinating. Now, again, how much he learned on the job there in Detroit with Aaron Glenn will determine how successful he is. But the bottom line is the Detroit Lions, yes, number 1 seed in the NFC last year when healthy, certainly one of the better teams in the NFL, and the talent is certainly still there as well. But we've seen it before. Coaching absolutely matters. Coordinating absolutely matters. And the Detroit Lions having 2 new coordinators, not a small thing. Just not sure how big of a thing it's going to be. But if it has any sort of impact on this game or on the season for the Detroit Lions, then that's an area where you could look at the Washington Commanders potentially coming in as underdogs and coming out with the victory. Another one on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. I think if you got the Commanders and Vikings rosters stacked up, I think most of the national pundits, personally, I like the Commanders roster, but I think most of your national people would probably try to give it a push. Since it's in Minnesota, you might be looking at them getting a little bit of an edge here. Expected to start J.J. McCarthy this year, the second-year quarterback, but second-year quarterback without a whole lot of experience because he tore his right meniscus in his first preseason game. Had a slight setback in November during his recovery, but he's gotten plenty of mental reps, not as many physical ones. So everybody learns a little bit differently. How much JJ is going to be able to turn those physical or those mental reps into physical process or progress once he is able to hit the field again this training camp is going to be the key. Also, defensive coordinator Brian Flores, very, very, very blitz happy. Jaden Daniels, one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz in 2024. And Coach Flores doesn't really shift his approach for his opponent. So if that pattern stays true, the Commanders will have some opportunities to take advantage of a very aggressive Vikings defense. And then again, another area they can gain at the Eagles at the end of the year. It's an end-of-year scenario. If the Philadelphia Eagles have already clinched the division, they've already shown under Nick Sirianni, they're going to sit. Weeks 1 through 12, the Washington Commanders play 4 divisional games. Playing Washington late could actually backfire on the NFL when you look at the Eagles, because the Eagles are going to play 7 non-playoff or losing record teams before they see the Commanders even one time. By the time we get to that Week 18 finale that the NFL is probably hoping is going to be this grand divisional finale game, it could already be over. And you're looking at the Washington Commanders going into Philadelphia. And yeah, it might be because Saquon's sad or Jalen's sad or whatever. But at the end of the day, if it gets the Commanders another win, it gets Commanders another win. If the division or positioning is on the line and the Commanders come away with plus 3 days rest advantage against the Eagles in Week 18, the second highest rest advantage of the season, that coupled with a short travel time is a big plus. And the Eagles are going to be coming off of a road trip to Buffalo as well. Where could they lose ground? Well, the New York Giants have Russell Wilson, a +8 margin of victory in 2 games against the New York Giants 2024. Not going to elicit a lot of confidence from Commanders fans. You also look at the Dallas Cowboys. No Dak Prescott the 2 times that the Commanders played the Cowboys in 2024. The Cowboys invested in the offensive line this year. They got George Pickens. So certainly you could look at Dallas being a better team this year. And the Las Vegas Raiders, this 2025 Raiders is not going to be your 2024 Raiders that won only 4 games. In fact, if I have to pick who could be the 2025 Commanders, it would be the Las Vegas Raiders. So 3 games there that you could potentially fall into a trap again this season. So it's going to be really interesting. But the first step, make the playoffs, win those 10, 11. If you can get to 12 wins, that'd be great. If you also could win the division,